y'all, welcome back to Homemade Simple. If we've not met before, I'm Lori. I am so glad that you're here today. It's almost the new year. 2024 is right around the corner. I am so excited about the new year because I really think it is my very favorite time of the year. I love new beginnings and fresh starts, and we get one every single January. I know that we're all really thinking about sticking to our budgets, and I have 10 really delicious, family-friendly, frugal recipes that are going to help us stick to our grocery budget, not only at the beginning, but also throughout 2024. Make sure that you bookmark this video and share it with everyone that you know that could really use some good, frugal, family-friendly recipes to help them stay on their budget throughout the year. Before we get started, I hope that you will go and subscribe to the channel. Also, click the notification bell so you can be notified when all new content is added to the channel. I like to interact with all of you very frequently in the community page, and so you clicking that notification bell is going to make sure that you don't miss out on any of the fun. Also, I would love to have you join me on Instagram at My Homemade Simple. I will link that down in the description box below, and also you can find me on Facebook. I would love to interact with you on those platforms as well. Now, with all of that being said, let's get started on these delicious, family-friendly, frugal recipes to help us stick to our budget throughout 2024. No discussion about my family's favorite meals can be complete without talking about chicken and dumplings. I love chicken and dumplings. My family loves chicken and dumplings, and they are so inexpensive and frugal as far as a really good, nutritious meal. I know that I've talked about chicken and dumplings several times on the channel. I'm just going to go over a little bit of a tutorial for those of you who might be new. I like to start by cooking my chicken in the Instant Pot. I usually cook mine for a couple of hours. I like to cook my chicken and dumplings on the stovetop in my big Dutch oven. So I'm going to move about 8 cups of chicken broth over to the Dutch oven on the stovetop and turn it on high. I'm also going to add 1 recipe of my cream of chicken soup recipe. You can find that down in the description below. Now, while our broth is getting to a rolling boil, I'm going to put together our dumpling mix. I like to use this recipe for my dumplings. It's 2 cups of flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, a teaspoon of salt. I mix all of those dry ingredients and then work in 1/3 cup of coconut oil or butter, and then add 3/4 cup of milk. Mix all of that together, knead it on the counter, and then flatten it with a rolling pin. I use my pizza cutter to cut the strips in about 1 by 3 or 4-inch pieces, and then I'm going to take every single individual dumpling and flour them in just some regular all-purpose flour. And now I'm going to put in all of my dumplings and allow those to cook in the broth for probably a good 30 minutes. But you have to make sure that you keep this good and stirred, or they will stick to the bottom. So just be attentive to them, give them a good stir every 3 to 5 minutes or so, and everything will be fine. I'm gonna add a cup or 2 of shredded chicken. All this has to do is sit and simmer for about 15 more minutes, and it will be completely done and ready to go. I'm definitely gonna have chicken and dumplings in the regular meal rotation in 2024. Next up, we're going to talk about basil pesto sandwiches, one of my family's favorite meals, and really it could not be simpler and more delicious. I think you're going to love these sandwiches. So just get some pre-made rolls. I got mine at Sam's Club, and I'm going to spread some basil pesto on each of the insides of the rolls, and then I'm going to add a slice of ham to each sandwich, 2 slices of tomatoes, Havarti cheese, but you can use whatever kind of cheese that you like the best, and a handful of spinach. Now, this spinach is going to give you a little bit of trouble. It's sort of hard to keep everything together as you're putting it on the griddle, so you can just do the best you can and reinsert the spinach if it falls out. It'll be fine. I have a griddle heating with about a tablespoon or so of olive oil. I've heated the griddle for about 5 minutes or so just to make sure that it's good and hot. I'm going to place my sandwiches on there, allow them to cook for about 5 minutes on one side, and then I'm going to flip them over. This is also a little bit of a difficulty, but I'm sure that you can get it done. You just have to sort of use your spatula and your hands just to be careful not to get burned. Cook them on the other side for about 5 minutes and then it's all ready. I also baked some broccoli, which is super simple to throw together. I just opened 2 packages of frozen broccoli, drizzled it with olive oil, sprinkled it with salt, and cooked it in the oven for about 20 minutes at 400 degrees. What I really like about this meal is how simple and easy it is to throw together on a busy weeknight. It really is a nourishing and easy meal to get on the table on busy nights. Next up in the lineup for must-have dinners in 2024 is chicken fajitas. I usually like to have rice as a side when we have chicken fajitas, so I can just simply and easily throw that together in the Instant Pot. While your rice is cooking, go ahead and chop up 2 chicken breasts and place them in a heated skillet with about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. You can add any kind of seasonings that you like, but my favorite seasonings for fajitas is cumin and chili powder and salt. I use about a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of chili powder, and I go a little heavy, probably a tablespoon of cumin. Stir your chicken together so that it can get coated with the oil and the seasonings. While your chicken is cooking, go ahead and chop up 3 bell peppers. I chose the multicolored ones. The green ones would be just fine. Also 2 onions. Add the bell peppers and onions to a skillet with about 2 tablespoons of olive oil and cook them with about a tablespoon of cumin. While those vegetables are cooking, go ahead and chop up 3 or 4 tomatoes. But you won't want to add the tomatoes until the other vegetables are cooked down quite a bit. It does not take these tomatoes very long to heat through, and you don't want them to turn to mush. After the tomatoes have cooked for a few minutes, maybe 3 or 4, add the chicken into the skillet and allow everything to simmer together for about 5 minutes or so. You can really make this meal even quicker if you go ahead and prep your vegetables the night before or during the day. After everything has cooked together nicely, get a large flour tortilla and spoon a hearty helping of this fajita mixture into your flour tortilla and top with plenty of cheese. The rice is done also, so I like to top my rice with salsa, and this is going to be a delicious meal that you can get on the table in no time at all. Next up on my favorites list is sauteed chicken. This really is one of my very favorite meals to make for my family. I'm going to begin by putting about 2 tablespoons of olive oil in this iron skillet and turning it on to medium-high heat. I'm going to add about a teaspoon of salt and about a teaspoon of Italian seasoning and allow that to cook and heat in the oil while I dice up the chicken. After I put the chicken in the iron skillet, I'm going to season the top of the chicken with another teaspoon of salt and Italian seasoning. I'm also going to make some green beans today, so I'm going to start those on the stove as well, and I'm going to add about a tablespoon of bacon grease just to season the green beans. That's totally optional, or you can use butter. Kelsey was sweet enough to make the potatoes for me tonight, and she is just dicing up several potatoes. We usually have 1 or 2 potatoes per person, and then she's going to rinse them and dry them really well. After she dried them, she's gonna add about 2 tablespoons of olive oil and season the potatoes with salt and pepper. She's gonna cook the potatoes in the air fryer on 400 degrees for about 15 minutes. You'll know that the chicken is done and ready to serve when all of the liquid has cooked out of the pan and all of the chicken has at least a little bit of browning. That's a good indication that it's all done. I love how simple and easy this meal is to throw together. Next up is the easiest vegetable soup recipe. All of these canned vegetables, we're just gonna dump them into the crock pot, turn it on, and let it simmer. I'm gonna begin with 1 large can of diced tomatoes, and for a little bit of spice, I'm gonna add some Rotel, a can of carrots, a can of corn, a can of green beans. I'm not going to drain any of those vegetables because I want all of that flavor to be incorporated in our soup. Add 2 tablespoons of Italian seasoning, 2 teaspoons of salt, give it a good stir, turn the slow cooker on low, and leave it all day. I also like to add some ground beef to this recipe if the budget allows. I love how easy, nutritious, and frugal this meal is. It's going to make it on our table very often in 2024. My next must-have meal for 2024 is an easy crock-pot beef enchilada. I'm going to go ahead and cook up some ground beef and season that with a teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of chili powder, and 2 teaspoons of cumin. And while this meat browns, I'm going to make some homemade enchilada sauce. Now you can totally get a can of enchilada sauce and that be absolutely fine, but I like to make my own. It just is pretty easy and it eliminates a lot of cost and also a lot of ingredients. So I'm going to start with 1 tablespoon of olive oil. I'm going to heat that up a bit. Now that my oil is heated, I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of flour, and I'm going to whisk this for a full minute to make sure that we get rid of sort of the raw flour flavor. This is sort of a half recipe. You can double this recipe. That's normally what I do, is use 2 tablespoons of oil and 2 tablespoons of flour. But honestly, I'm running low on chili powder, so that's why I halved it. Now I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of chili powder, a teaspoon of cumin, a teaspoon of garlic powder, and a teaspoon of salt. I'm gonna stir all this together and cook it for another minute. And now I'm gonna whisk in 1 cup of chicken broth. I'll stir this and whisk this to make sure that it's all nice and incorporated. And then I'm gonna let it simmer on the stove, stirring it every now and again for probably 10 minutes until it's thickened up. While this is thickening, I'm gonna get the ground beef and the other ingredients ready. I have all my ingredients ready. I have quartered 5 flour tortillas. I have shredded some cheese. I have made our enchilada sauce, and I have browned our seasoned ground beef. So those are the ingredients you're gonna need. I'm gonna start by putting a little bit of enchilada sauce in the bottom of the crock pot. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it to high so that it can be warming up. And then I'm going to place a layer of these tortillas on the bottom. I'm gonna sprinkle those tortillas with about a half of the ground beef, and then pour half of the enchilada sauce on top, sprinkle some cheese, and I'm gonna repeat that process one more time. I'm gonna cook this on high for about 2.5 hours or so. Okay, the enchiladas have been cooking for a little over 2 hours on high. And honestly, this looks like something that has been cooked in the oven. It's bubbling, it smells really good, and I am probably a little bit more excited about this dish than I should be. I'm gonna top it with a little bit of sour cream. And I have chopped up some tomatoes. This recipe is definitely one of my favorites, and I hope that you will add it to your list in 2024 as well. Next up is a new recipe for my family, but it was so good the first time that we had it. It's definitely going to be something that we have a lot in 2024. It's a chicken and rice Rotel casserole in the crock pot. It is so delicious and so easy. In a bowl, I'm going to mix together 1 cup of rice, 1 cup of chicken broth, and 1 cup of sour cream, 1 can of Rotel, and 1 diced onion. I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of cumin, and a teaspoon of chili powder. Now that I have all of the ingredients added to the bowl, I'm going to give it a good stir to make sure that all of the spices and seasonings are well combined, and to try to incorporate the sour cream as much as I can. Then I'm going to lay out 1.5 pounds of chicken tenders. You can use any kind of chicken for this recipe, but I would recommend that you chop it up into smaller pieces if you have just a large chicken breast. Then I'm going to pour my bowl of ingredients on top of the chicken. Set the crock pot to high for about 4 hours. If you want to leave it on low, you can cook it for about 7 or 8. And then it's ready to go at dinner time. I topped it with a little bit of cheese. This meal checks all the boxes as far as comfort food goes. It definitely has earned its rank in the top 10 favorite family meals. There's no doubt that an egg recipe has to make our top 10. Our chickens do such a good job of laying all of the eggs, and this is a great way to use them up. I'm going to chop up 3 zucchini and add them to a skillet with about a tablespoon or 2 of olive oil. I'm also going to add 1 chopped up bell pepper and 1 chopped onion. While the vegetables are cooking, I'm going to crack 12 eggs. I'm going to add 1 diced tomato. I think this is cooked down enough, so I have my scrambled eggs. I'm going to keep it cooking here on the stovetop, and in a minute or so I'm going to try to release some of the edges and allow the egg to sort of get down in the bottom, sort of like an omelet. I have my oven heating to 350 degrees, and so after this is going to semi-set, I'm going to move it to the oven and let it cook for another 10 minutes until it's all set all the way through. It is cooked partially through, and that's really what we're looking for. I think it will cook the rest of the way if we go ahead and move it to the oven. After it cooks for about 10 minutes, I'm gonna add about a half a cup of cheese on the top and place it back under the broiler for about 5 minutes or so, just to allow it to brown. This is one of those meals that's perfect for any time of the year. You can change it up with whatever ingredients you have on hand, and it is so simple and easy to get ready and put on the table. And I think it's really going to help me stick to my budget in 2024. I hope you don't stop being my friend for this, but I cannot stop sharing this taco soup. It is a perfect frugal meal. It is so versatile and perfect for any busy evening. I'm going to start with browning a pound of ground beef, and to that I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of onion powder, a tablespoon of cumin, and a tablespoon of chili powder. I'm going to add 2 large cans of diced tomatoes and then half a can filled up with water. I felt a little pioneerish because I didn't have any canned corn or frozen corn, so I just took this frozen corn on the cob and took it off of the cob. But it equals about a pound of frozen corn or 1 can of drained corn. Either one is perfect. I added a little bit more of cumin and chili powder. I let it simmer for about 30 minutes. Now, I could not remember what I was forgetting. I knew I was forgetting something, and normally I add black beans to this recipe. So if you have some black beans on hand, go ahead and put those in there as well, and this will taste even better. And finally, let's talk about this delicious fried rice recipe. I think it is the perfect frugal meal for the whole family. I've got 2 tablespoons of butter melted in this tall iron skillet. I'm going to put my carrots in to let them soften while I get the eggs ready. So because this is homemade simple, we're not gonna highly complicate this. This is just going to be sort of whatever floats your boat, but I'm gonna use 5 eggs for our family. If you want to load up on a lot more eggs, that's your choice, but I think I'm gonna do 5 eggs for the amount of rice that I have, which I think is about 4 cups. I'm just gonna crack the eggs, and then we're gonna sort of make scrambled eggs. Now we'll just wait for the carrots to finish up, and then we'll cook our eggs. These are good and soft, I think, soft enough anyway, so I'm going to transfer them to a bowl, and then I'm going to cook the eggs in the same skillet. I'm gonna add just another half tablespoon of butter, let that melt, and then I'm going to pour in the eggs. Just gonna give it one last good scramble. And then I'm gonna pour it in, I'm gonna let it sit and let it get some structure on the bottom before I start moving it around at all. Okay, you want them to be a little wet still, so I'm going to go ahead and pour in the rice. And I'm gonna put in the carrots. We're gonna mix it all up, and then we'll add the soy sauce. I'm gonna start with 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. This is the budget-friendly version. If I wasn't trying to be on a really tight budget, I would use these liquid aminos instead. Just because it's non-GMO, that's my first choice, but soy sauce will be fine. And we're looking for, I'm sure y'all know what color fried rice is, so that's when we'll know that we have enough. I've started with 3 tablespoons. We'll see how that does in this amount. This is one of those we don't really have a recipe kind of meals. It's just gonna be whatever turns out to work with the amount that you have. I'm gonna add the 4th tablespoon, and I think that should do it. This is very simple and easy to put together, but there is a lot of nutrition in this meal, even though it doesn't really look like it, or you might not think that way, especially if you are sure to add some vegetables. It's got plenty of protein. The rice will give it plenty of staying power, and there's a lot of flavor. I know that you have a ton of recipes that you could share with all of us that are great for a family budget. This is a great opportunity for all of us to help one another make our recipe books full of frugal family meals. So I hope that you will be willing to share all of your frugal family meal ideas down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching today. If you know someone who could benefit from this video, please go ahead and click that share button. Send it on to all of your friends and family who are hoping to stick to their budget in 2024. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you have a wonderful new year. I look forward to seeing you every week in 2024. I love you, and I will see you again next time.